I just finished watching Netflix's new movie, Damsel, and I actually didn't think it was nearly as bad as everybody's been saying. I've been seeing, like, a lot of really mixed things about it, and honestly, there was only really one part in the movie that really made me go, oh my god. Now, I would imagine we could all agree on the same thing. We're gonna get into it in just a second. Before we do, though, I do want to say, hello, everybody, and welcome back to another video. If you are new here, my name is Kyle. I'm your guy with too many YouTube channels. Let's talk about Damsel, and also, we have a spoiler warning. Of course, this is a spoiler review. I'm going to be going through everything, talking about my favorite scenes, talking about what I liked, what I didn't like. There's your last chance. Spoiler warning. We're going to get into it in 3, 2, 1. So, of course, the movie starts out, and I had no idea anything about this movie, to be honest with you. I didn't even know it was about a dragon. I even saw the poster after, because my girl wanted to watch it, right? She just put the movie on. I ended up going to bed with her, and I didn't even know that Millie Bobby Brown had a sword there, so I didn't know what this is about. So when it came to the opening scene, I was kind of like, here we go. Because these, like, marriage royal movies are just not my cup of tea, personally. Nothing against anybody who does like them, but it's just, again, not my thing at all, right? So it's all about this girl wanting to get married. We have a girl named Elodie, that's Millie Bobby Brown. Actually, she wasn't bad for the role, because I would imagine sometimes I don't know if you guys would feel the same way. I see these actors play, and I don't see them as characters. I see them as the actor, kind of like everyone has the problem with The Rock. Typically, I would do that with Millie Bobby Brown, but I think, like, I haven't seen her enough, plus she doesn't have a shaved head, so maybe, maybe that's why. But anyways, we're shown Elodie, that's the name, Elodie, excuse me, and we're brought to this girl. She's taking care of her people. She's a girl boss type character, right? You know, that's what Netflix is always trying to do these days. But again, I'm just ignoring any messaging that they're trying to do. I actually really like this movie, but of course, we get into the idea that she's going to marry because her family needs money. She's going to marry someone named Prince Henry, and they end up meeting. The people at the castle were kind of a little bit rude to her, but Elodie's family was like, hey, we can't let them know that we're not rich, right? They were a little bit snotty. She meets Prince Henry. They end up going on a nice horse ride together. She's a real D-bag to him. She's like, oh, I'm the person I'm going to marry. I might as well get to know, you know? And I don't really see the big deal about it. I understand being upset about an arranged marriage, but, like, you're willingly walking into this, apparently. So they unite a little bit. They end up being a little bit happy. It's the dude from Jurassic World, which I can't believe how different he looks over here, right? But so that is the entire setup to it. We're introduced to Millie Bobby Brown. She ends up getting married to this guy named Prince Henry. Well, the marriage didn't happen yet, but we're really getting an idea of her character here. But then we move on to the actual marriage. And you know what? It's a little bit of a marriage. They don't really spend too much time on it. This movie actually moves pretty quickly, and I don't know how long it is. It's probably like an hour and a half. I don't really know. Regardless, they get married, and they're not so living really happily ever after. But before the marriage, you have her stepmother, Millie Bobby Brown's stepmother, coming in and be like, there's something going on here. I don't like this. I don't like this family, something like that. And then, of course, she's setting up a little bit of betrayal for something. So I'm over here thinking that's going to be like a Game of Thrones type situation. But actually, yeah, that's not as bad as Game of Thrones, because I'm thinking about Ramsay, I'm thinking about Joffrey, and like, no, if I was a girl, I'd rather get tossed into a pit with a dragon than what happened with those two. So I guess it wasn't that bad compared to it, but I was expecting something along those lines to happen. I wasn't expecting her because, again, I didn't know a dragon was part of this movie. I didn't know that she was going to get tossed down into a pit. I had an idea once they had the celebration. So, of course, like I said, they get married after some warnings, but then Henry's all like, oh, we're going to have some sort of ritual. My family, we need to honor them. And of course, it's all eerie. It's all weird. She's going up in the mountains by herself, and everybody has, again, the Game of Thrones gold masks on. They're all staring at her, and she's like, oh, I'm going to be one of the people. When she walked in, well, she was skeptical. Then she felt good about it. They did the little blood cut thing on her hand, which I always cringe at. I can't imagine, man, having a cut here. How inconvenient would that be, by the way? It's absolutely ridiculous. So then, of course, I'm starting to get the idea that she's going to get chucked down into this pit, but they kept focusing on it a little bit, but I wasn't sure. And, of course, Prince Henry ends up carrying her. He's walking with her, and he just goes, I'm sorry, and tosses her right down. She starts screaming, freaking out, so she is ultimately a sacrifice that they have been talking about for so long. She falls down this hole. She ends up getting knocked out, and depending on how many leaves were in there, it's a little bit of a long fall to live through, but there's not much you could do there. So, of course, I'm thinking, okay, this movie's taking a little bit of a big twist, and it's going to turn into a little bit of a survival movie, which I actually really, really liked at first. So what's really cool is the dragon. So we're introduced to this dragon fairly quickly. She doesn't know where she is. She finds out that there's other princesses that have been thrown down there. There's been a bunch of them that were sacrificed. The dragon is really cool in the sense where the dragon actually speaks. And we don't see the dragon right away. And I think that was because of budgeting reasons, because you see the point of view of the dragon. You see like a little shadow of the dragon. But at the same time, it worked. What's interesting is the dragon talked. I'll say this now because it's something that I do want to talk about later is I don't love the way the dragon speaks. It reminds me of, oh crap, what was it? Oh, Danmachi. If you ever watch that anime, Is It Wrong to Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon? You have these creatures, and the name of them are escaping right now. They're like lizard creatures, right, with swords, and they're really cool characters. They speak and everything, but the problem is their mouth doesn't move when they speak. That takes me out of it. So we had a lot of moments with this dragon speaking, and the dragon would just do this. Or not at all. You know, it didn't match. I didn't like it. And that kind of took me out of it for a second. But the dragon was really cool. It was really scary. We're getting the idea of this dragon who just loves the chase, kind of. We don't really have a perspective or a certain way we're supposed to be looking at the dragon yet. Regardless, the chase scene's really cool. Her hiding from the dragon's really cool. I like that the dragon starts burning her, and it's not like, oh my god, I'm running away from the dragon. I'm doing great. She keeps running into these dragon proms. She keeps thinking that places are okay when it's not, until she finds out a little bit later that there were previous sacrifices. There are messages on the wall that help. There's kind of messages where it's like, oh, this place is safe. This place is not safe. She runs into a bunch of people's dresses. She runs into a bunch of people's jewelry that she finds out isn't hers. I know I'm jumping the gun a little bit here, but so she is on the run from this dragon who is hurting her and getting really, really close. But there are places, because they're in a cave, a big cave, but there's little tunnels that the dragon can't get through, and there's notes left there for her. I like the fact that the dragon almost catches her, talking to her, taunting her. The dragon was super, super scary. And this is the part where I actually really, really ended up enjoying the movie. Goes downhill a little bit, to be honest with you, and I didn't like it at the beginning. I liked it in the middle. Didn't like it at the end. That's kind of how I'm rolling over here. But we had so many cool little scenes where the dragon's like, I'm coming for you. And it was really, really creepy, dude. And there was also, what I really liked too, is she went on this whole thing where she was going to escape the dragon, because the dragon isn't like this super smart dragon or anything. It knows the caves, but there were points in the movie where she could take all these tunnels to kind of get around to an area where the dragon was not. So she ended up a little bit like very, very shortly after like crying and taking a nap and finding these things that are healing her, which all worked out pretty well. Then she had to climb up all of this glass. And I was thinking to myself, because I wasn't checking how long the movie was, I was like, I don't know. I could see this being the end of the movie, but it seems a little bit too early. And I was a little bit unsure about where exactly the movie was going to end, but she ended up wrapping herself, climbing up some glass. The dragon ends up going right underneath her, and I'm like, okay, why doesn't the dragon breathe any fire? But the dragon didn't breathe any fire. It kind of just sat there, and Millie Bobby Brown crawled out, but then we figured out why. Sunlight's there. She gets so happy, and then she just finds herself in the middle of a mountain so high up off of the ground. And I thought that was really cool, because it actually ended up leading me to think that she was getting out of there. It's just one of those, like, it was perfectly done the way my expectations were just taken for a spin. But then the dragon just comes back from the outside. So it turns out the dragon can be outside of the cave too, and just almost gets her. Then she's brought back into the cave, needs to go into hiding. She's not done yet. It was really well done the entire way that took place. So it was really cool. Like, the entire time she was running from the dragon, I really, really liked it. And off the top of my head, guys, I have very, very few notes for this video. There was not like, I'm not going to lie to you, I ended up writing my own. I just have a little bit of a summary plot on the side. So typically I would go through specifically each step that she took, but I think I covered the majority of it over here. But after that, of course, we have her dad actually coming back to her, and her dad ended up being the one who sacrificed her, which was absolutely insane. And he felt bad too. He's like, oh, please forgive me. And I was like, dude, I would have so watched that dragon just go put the finger right through, you know. So they end up being stuck in this giant room where she figures out that she was a sacrifice. Her dad gave her away. The dragon is taking her dad, and her dad has this like big moment of, what do you call it, this the word's escaping me for some reason. I don't know why. My apologies, guys. This video is a little bit all over the place today. this redemption was the word that I couldn't think of. I actually had to pause the video. I don't know why that was escaping me. So he has this big redemption moment that I didn't understand, and he's like, Elodie, run, do not come out. The dragon wanted to see her, right? The dragon wanted to find her, eat her, kill her, whatever she wanted to do, and she literally just sticks her finger right through his armor, and I thought that was a really good way to die. And this is also the point where we actually see the dragon, how it looks, and the dragon just seems like this evil dragon. I actually didn't know if there was an ulterior motive for the dragon, but regardless, she kills the dad. Millie Bobby Brown goes a little bit crazy, and I'm like, dude, if I found out if I got thrown down a hole as a princess because my dad ended up like selling me as a sacrifice, I would be like, yeah, hey, go dragon, woo, you know? I'd be coming out from around that corner being like, yeah, dragon, woo, can I finish him off, please? I'll pause. Oh my God. But anyways, so the father ends up being dead. The people who came down there all end up dying. Millie Bobby Brown tries to make another escape. It doesn't work out. But in the meantime, Mr. Dog Harry has been taking on another bride. You know what's funny? I was talking to my wife about this, and it was like, could you imagine all the people who constantly have to sit through wedding after wedding after wedding? And Elodie's sister was thrown down the hole. Oh, and I forgot to mention too, Millie Bobby Brown ended up escaping, and she made it back in time. Not in time, excuse me. She made it back to the sacrifice place, not in time, and had to actually jump down the hole again to go after her sister, which sucks. But it was really cool that she had to like go back and do all of that after actually getting away from the dragon and actually running away from the dragon. But now she has to protect her sister, and of course her sister is not nearly as strong as her. They set that up at the beginning. Millie Bobby Brown was kind of like the savior of her village, but that was a really, really fun scene to have her go back and like have to actually confront the dragon. She ended up having this whole scheme where she built up all the armor, knocked it down, but at the same time, we also get the hint and realize in a flashback that soldiers before came in and killed all the dragon's kids. So that's why the dragon wants to take revenge on the queen and all of the people, all of the little princesses born after that. That's a little crazy in my opinion, but I guess it makes sense why the dragon is so pissed off. So she ends up subverting the dragon's expectations, saving her sister, but the dragon comes back in time because the dragon's all pissed off. The dragon comes back, and they end up chatting a little bit, and this is where I really hated the movie, okay? This is where it got ridiculous. I'll say this now, the ending to the dragon, like in this fight scene, wasn't bad. It wasn't bad because it makes sense. The wind was kind of going up the shell. It's believable for me. But this is a movie without somebody that has no superpowers. It's just a girl. It's a princess, little girl boss, right? She's sword fighting the dragon as a human. The dragon's like walking up to her, tells the story about, I don't remember, what, like if we learned about that first, if the dragon spoke to her first. Regardless, that conversation took place, but they were chatting and the dragon was pissed off, and Elodie's sitting there with a sword like, yeah, come at me, I dare you, dragon, I'll slay you right here. And the dragon actually ends up grabbing her. She stabs it in the eye, which kind of, okay, like, that kind of makes sense, kind of doesn't. But then she's literally like, ding, ding, with the sword, you know? Like, she's fighting this dragon, this giant dragon that can't kill her, but the giant dragon just can burn down an entire town, right? The fire-breathing dragon. This is where I really didn't like it, because she was ricocheting stuff, she was blocking stuff, and she ended up stabbing the dragon. Like, it was a little bit ridiculous how that worked. But then, after that, the way she finished off the dragon was finding a shell and the little wind that was going through it and kind of ricocheting the fire back, or the wind back. So she ended up pissing off the dragon, wanting it to blow fire, and the dragon ended up blowing fire onto itself. And Millie Bobby Brown wants to be a little bit better than actually finishing off the dragon. She actually revealed how the blood mark is being confused, because we now found out that she's not actually killing daughters. She's killing innocent princesses, and all the daughters are thriving. They're having kids, right? And the dragon just feels bad and goes, okay, finish the job then. And then she wants to be better than that, so she sticks the sword in the ground, has one of those moments like we think she stabs her, she doesn't, and that's the end of it. And and she's like, no, I'm better than this. So this is where the movie becomes a little bit more predictable in that sense, because now, of course, they're escaping. Millie Bobby Brown shows up at another wedding after that, and we all know what's coming, right? She's all pissed off. The queen's like, we don't need to fear you. Who do you think you are because you happen to escape from a dragon? And she's like, not me you have to worry about. Dragon comes in, blows fire. Everybody's dying. It's this crazy moment. It was a really, really good revenge type scene. Could have been done way better in my opinion, but I was left with a big sour taste in my mouth after the way that she actually fought the dragon. I don't understand why she wouldn't, I guess for the movie's sake, but there could have been a way you done it better, man, because you could have just said, give me a chance to explain, because the dragon was speaking to her, right? The dragon was willing to listen. You could have just said, explained it instead of having a big fight, making her burn herself, healing her up, and then like, you were lied to. This is why. Like, it doesn't make sense to me, and it just left me a little bit unsatisfied personally. And the movie also kind of ended a little bit after that. There wasn't really much else to say. They were back on the boat like they were at the beginning of the movie, except this time the dragon was flying by him. The dragon has some new friends. Millie Bobby Brown has some new friends, and Millie Bobby Brown ends the story as the hero who almost slayed the dragon. It all ended quickly. The revenge scene could have been done better. The fight with the dragon could have been done better, but that's not to take away what took place in the middle of the movie. The entire time she was on the run, the entire time the dragon was taunting her, the entire time where I actually felt like this dragon was something that you needed to be away from instead of being just a little bit of a dumb dragon that you can fight. I loved that at the beginning of the movie. The entire middle of the movie, I had a lot of fun with, but it ended too quickly. It resolved really weird, and the beginning of the movie, I got a little bit bored with the whole wedding, but I guess you need to set something up, right? But guys, let me know what you thought about Damsel down below. I actually really enjoyed the movie. I really did, but a couple things could have been done better. Thank you so much for watching the video, everybody. If you are interested, check out one of these videos on screen right here, right now. We take a look at a lot of stuff on the Clenema channel. This is one of them. Take care, everybody.